ourselves as the engineers in watchmaking. We have a rich history, technical watches, instrument watches, that really makes a strong link between technology and very pure and rational design. As a designer, you look at the world with different eyes. I almost designed everything except cars and watches before I joined IWC. But what makes the difference between another beautiful watch and a successful product is exactly this aspect of identity.
Estamos aqui hoje para mais um Entusiasta Talks na Casa Engineer, que está acontecendo em São Paulo, pré-Fórmula 1, agora em novembro, com Christian Knupp, Chief Design Officer for IWC since 2008. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Bernardo.
This is so beautiful place. How are you liking Brazil so far?
Very much, very much. I had a good arrival here, saw a bit of the city, and now we discovered this amazing location. I'm personally a big fan of the architecture of the mid-century. It's an amazing venue here where we host our Casa Ingenieur and talk a little bit about the brand, our history, and our products.
It's the first time of the Casa Engineer project, or it already has in some locations?
No, we did a series of events worldwide highlighting the new Ingenieur collection and highlighting also our positioning in the world of watchmaking around engineering and pure design. For these events, we choose particularly interesting locations with special designs, special atmosphere. It's also amazing to see how this unfolds very, very different depending on the market, depending on what we find there in terms of architectural marvels. I've been to a stunning event in Scandinavia, in Norway, in one of the fjords where there's an iconic floating restaurant. That's obviously a completely different setting than what we find here in Sao Paulo. But it's nice how this reflects really the local culture and the local approach to design.
It's a project to celebrate the form and technique that is like a very important part of the design process for IWC, right?
Yes. We have relaunched the Ingenieur collection with a title Form und Technik, and this Form und Technik not only talks about the DNA of the Ingenieur representing form and technology in a perfect balance, but it's also very close to our heart as IWC Schaffhausen, representing who we are in the world of watchmaking. We see ourselves as the engineers in watchmaking. We have a rich history in technical watches, instrument watches, that really makes a strong link between technology and very pure and rational design.
Before going in at the brands and the engineer, the classics from the brands, what is your background in design as a designer? So you are almost 20 years already as chief designer in IWC. What is your background on design?
I'm initially trained as a carpenter, and then I studied industrial design in Germany, worked for a couple of international design agencies, mainly on product design and brand consultancy, and sometimes say for fun, I almost designed everything except cars and watches before I joined IWC. So I was really working on lighting, furniture, consumer appliances, domestic appliances, electronics, medical devices, even aircraft interiors. I have a very broad background in technical design, but when I joined the brand, the world of watch design was new to me.
Germany is like the epicenter for design in the early 20s, 80s with Bauhaus and the classic design school. Mm-hmm. I am a designer as well, but I'm not designer, so I'm kind of a frustrated designer. How important it is in your process to bring this classical design to the pieces and to the proportions, how the watch is, the legibility?
There's some different aspects. I think the history and the approach in German design you're referring to is a bit of a very rational, very clean, no frills design language. I think this corresponds very, very well with the history and the character of the IWC Schaffhausen brand. As such, it would be obviously very, very different with a couple of brands in the western parts of Switzerland that have a more artisanal history. But what my background and experience in design also brought me was that good design is also a collaborative process between creatives, between engineers, between different disciplines that have to play together to shape a perfect product in the end. It's not something a single person makes up behind his desk, but it's really a collaborative process involving experts that contribute to a better product in the end.
How do you decide when, for example, the engineer that was 2023, the revival, how do you decide when a classic deserves an update or you're going to make something new?
That's a very interesting and relevant question. In IWC we have a couple of collections that really form our product portfolio that are all rooted in the history of the brand. Some of them are more than 80 years old, like the Pilots, like the Portuguesers, and so on. And all these watches initially started as simple three-hands watches, many of them hand-wound watches just with three hands. And then over time they have evolved into a full collection with complications, with chronographs, with calendars, with tourbillons, and all kinds of technical variations. So we now have a full portfolio of these different product lines with a full set of references. This is a kind of unique asset in the industry to have such a rich product portfolio that covers from a classic elegant to very technical modern, everything in one brand. And they're still united by the overarching idea of very functional design and very pure aesthetics, but the expression of a Portofino and, for example, a Pilots is very, very different.
I think Brazilians are very traditionalists. So if you go like a little step further, like 1 millimeter more than you should, it kind of ruins the design. And I think that what you did with the engineer is true to the product. What's the balance between the new and the traditional?
The challenge in the watch market is you have so many new products coming into the market every day and every week. Most of them are very well designed, I have to say, with great respect for all my colleagues. So there's a lot of very nice watches coming to the market. But what makes the difference between another beautiful watch and a successful product is exactly this aspect of identity. So especially in such a crowded market environment, you need a product that has a strong identity, that is recognizable, that stands out, and that people can also read and understand as a design that belongs to a specific brand, even if the product doesn't show a logo. Every relaunch of a collection or a product for us means walking a fine line between the past and the future. So we have to respect the DNA of the brand, we have to respect the design codes of a particular product or collection, but we also have to add something new. We have to surprise our customers with something unexpected. If you stay too much into the past, then you repeat yourself, the brand gets boring, and if you really go too far into the future, you could lose connection and you become random. This tension field between past and future is very, very important to create a relevant design, a relevant product that has a clear identity. So what we do in all these collections is that we really put down actually the codes of each collection, be it a Pilot, a Portuguese or an Ingenieur, on paper for our designers. But these design codes have to be respected. But we also expect our designers and creatives and engineers to come up with new materials, with new complications, with new ideas that could add the news element, and in combination with the historic product DNA creates something outstanding, something new and something forward-looking.
We were talking about architecture, how you like the modern architecture, how this house is full of objects and the modern architecture of the building. Do you look for inspirations in modern architecture, or you try to focus more on products?
If you ask a designer, many of designers would probably say they find inspiration in art and music and architecture and fashion, and that's probably the same for me. But I'm also fundamentally convinced about the fact that as a designer, you look at the world with different eyes. Like a chef would taste different flavors or taste flavors more intense, or a musician listens to sound and music with a different ear. Also, designer, you look at the world and the products around you with a different eye, and you can find inspiration at the most unexpected places and in most unexpected situations, and that's also the beauty of it. And sometimes you're not even aware, and you translate this much later into a kind of product idea or product detail that comes out in your work.
The Mark 20 Petronas edition for me is one of my favorite IWC watches, besides the Engineer. Okay. But it's a really nice collaboration between design, the brands, IWC watches, and a Formula One team that IWC have been a sponsor for quite some time now.
This story actually started here in Sao Paulo.
Really?
Yes, at least for me. So my first Formula One race was here in Sao Paulo. Was in 2012. This was the last race of the season, and this was the year before we became sponsor of the Mercedes team. So I was here with a colleague watching the race in Interlagos circuit, and this was the last race of Michael Schumacher driving for Mercedes. So end of the race, we really celebrated with Michael and the entire team in the garage and so on his farewell. And so for me, in that sense, Sao Paulo is always linked to Formula One and a starting point for me personally, but also this entire endeavor working with the Formula One team since so many years.
And do you see room for more innovation in this collaboration, like different models, maybe an engineer?
I mean, we had so many different models over the years. There was a full Ingenieur Formula One collection in 2013, as you might remember, with very technical pieces, also using materials like carbon, and also the titanium aluminite came from motorsports and so on, what we're featuring then. So I think we tried a lot of different things, and looking back over the years, we really had very, very interesting additions. Having the Pilots collection linked to the team and the team watches, and using the team color, teal green. I was struggling with this color for a long time, and finally at one point we cracked it and we made it cool, and everyone wanted it, and we are now at a stage where we are confident also to play with this color on different models and achieve a very powerful and very differentiating design in the watch. No, I'm very confident that there's more opportunity for the future. And we have some cool stuff coming next year.
2 years from now, for the Engineer, have you considered more limited editions or experimental versions to explore the design potential beyond the core collection? Because I think the core collection is the black, green aqua, the white, and the titanium, right?
Yes, when we relaunched the Ingenieur, we wanted to be very, very cautious, because we tried so many different things on the Ingenieur, especially also like the big relaunches in 2013, where we went in many different directions with materials and complications and so on. And we now wanted to rebuild the Ingenieur, focusing on what makes this product and what is the core DNA of this product. And this is why we decided in first instance to go with a 40mm model in stainless steel and titanium, and came up with a very compact collection of only 4 references. So we said, okay, we go very, very slow this time. We don't want to overwhelm our customers and the markets, and the response was incredible. And so these 4 references resonated so well with the market, and that is obviously has some appetite for the steel integrated bracelet watches at the moment, and also respecting our story we have with Gerald Genta, who created the first Ingenieur SL in this differentiating design, what we have also in front of us. and laid the foundation with very powerful, very recognizable design codes. And then based on this reaction, we decided this year to expand the Ingenieur collection with some new sizes. We come up with the 35 millimeters in stainless steel and gold. We added a gold piece to the 40 millimeters automatics. We come with a very innovative new ceramic construction, a black zirconium oxide ceramic on the Ingenieur 42 millimeters. So this is an absolute milestone in constructing ceramic watches for IWC, and we also do the Ingenieur Perpetual calendar, bring such an iconic complication into the Ingenieur range.
Before the interview, we were talking about the Genta's design that it wasn't a big hit at the time. It was a revolution, but the public didn't care much until recent years.
It was probably a design that was too far ahead of its time.
Yes.
The power of the Genta design for me is really the visual differentiation. There's so much going on in his design when it comes to the case shape, the bezel, the dial, and the bracelet that is recognizable and differentiating, and that we could also move to an Ingenieur of the 21st century where we changed the proportions, where we changed so many things, but we kept his signature, and this still is recognizable, despite of the fact that this watch has different proportions, different details, different elements that we added, like the crown protection. It still is readable as an Ingenieur.
What do you think has changed? The public has changed to embrace the integrated bracelet design from like 7-8 years to today?
I think that there was maybe a couple of different trends. We've seen trends in the watch industry going vintage, going military, going all kinds of trend over the last couple of years. During and after the pandemic, there was a strong trend towards sports watches. And then also to rediscover the 70s design is a trend that covers the entire watch industry, not only the men's brands, but it's also ladies' watches, also rediscovering 70s design, which was a very creative, very bold period in design. And this for me is also links back to my history as an industrial designer. It was a fascinating era with very powerful, very forward-looking aesthetics in all product categories, be it furniture, be it electronics, be it cars. It was a very bold period where people were also looking into the future with a lot of enthusiasm and a very powerful vision. And this reflected in the landscape of products, but also in movies. This is an entire spirit which people rediscovered and loved, and then you see also this interest and expression of this era in different formats and in different channels, be it also movies, be it other product categories and the watches.
So talk about the Genta design. We have 3 museum pieces here, historical pieces. Let's start from the pocket watch. We have an Ingenieur pocket watch that I didn't even know it existed.
If I may, we should start with this one here, because this one, when we look at the Genta design, this one was first. This was a watch Gerald Genta created for IWC in 1976. So this was an automatic watch featuring a soft iron inner case, water-resistant case, and this very distinguishing design codes. A very bold case, the recognizable 5 bores on the bezel. Back at the time, this was a screw-in bezel. And you had the beautiful dial and also with a characteristic texture on the dial. So this was actually the starting point of what happened in the decades after, that this design was interpreted not by Genta himself, but by his successors and my predecessors that were working for IWC in the 80s and 90s, with various watches, with various sizes that were all playing around with the Genta design codes. So there were, for example, in the 80s and 90s, there was this series of what was called the skinny Ingenieur. So this was already much lighter than the original, which is in terms of ergonomics very, very challenging. So to make smaller models, there were even models under 30 millimeter. There was a 28 millimeter models. There were diamond set pieces. There was quartz versions, all in the spirit of the Ingenieur.
What's the size of this one?
I think that's a 34. The 34 millimeter was one of the most popular sizes for men and women in the 80s and 90s. So this existed in stainless steel, in steel gold, but also in full gold, lots of yellow gold versions as well. So the 34 millimeter was the predominant size back at the time for the Ingenieur. Yeah, and there was also some rarities like a pocket watch, so using pocket watch movements from IWC and creating an Ingenieur-inspired case, also with a characteristic bezel design, and also this line pattern. So this was inspired by the millimeter paper of engineers. So next to the textured dial that was created by Genta, there was also some ranges that were featuring the millimeter paper, which was a visual translation of the Ingenieur traditionally working on paper with pen on this millimeter paper, translating this aspect into the product aesthetics.
So this is a really, really nice piece. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know it existed. So really nice to showcase this to the true IWC clients. And what do you think defines the IWC design?
Now, IWC has a design that is really based on functional purpose and on aesthetic purity. And when we look back in our history, IWC always had a very technical approach to watchmaking. Our founder, the American engineer and watchmaker Florentine Arresto Jones, when he started the company, he was founding the first serial production of watches, combining production methods he brought over from the US with skilled Swiss craftsmanship he was finding in Schaffhausen. So this combination between technology and craftsmanship is very deeply rooted in our DNA. And this led to very robust and very accurate watches that gave IWC the reputation also for military watches and instrument watches, which we did in the early 20th century. So these instrument watches, with their robustness and legibility and this pure no-frills design, they still form the foundation of who we are today in the world of watchmaking. So we don't paint dials, we don't decorate movements, but we are all working in the spirit of a precision instrument, and that clarity of that instrument watch finds its expression in our collection.
Almost 20 years of IWC design, which was your most challenging project?
I think that there's lots of technically challenging projects, and that's part of the fun of my job. That not everything is easy, but you have to overcome some hurdles. You have to find clever solutions. You have to discover new materials. For me, looking back in history, one of the watches that were very close to my heart was actually the reintroduction of the Palweber watches, which we did for the anniversary, for the 150 years anniversary. When I saw the Palweber watches for the first time during my first visit in the IWC Museum, this was even during the interview process. I didn't even get the job, but I saw these watches and these pocket watches in the Palweber design using discs instead of hands. I found this so impressive, I found this so stunning. So I said to myself, whenever I get this job, we have to bring these watches back. So it took me already some years to do this for the Jubilee, but to reintroduce such a design and such a technology required a lot of persuasion and a lot of convincing people, and in the end also quite some technical efforts to re-engineer completely such a movement to modern standards.
Before we wrap up the interview, I have to ask you, which one is your favorite watch?
I hear this question more often, and my typical answer on this is no joking. It's the one coming out in 2 years. Because very simple. I mean, the watch coming out in 2 years. This is really taking all my attention. Requires my passion, my love, my focus. Also with the team. So this is always my favorite. And as a designer, I'm very much looking into the future. I'm very much forward-looking as a person, and I'm not looking back. I'm not really a sentimental person. I'm not really a watch collector. I for sure have acquired some pieces over time, but I'm not looking back at my personal record or trajectory in IWC design. So I keep myself busy with what makes the future of this brand.
Nice. Christian, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks for having me, Bernardo.
I hope you like São Paulo. I hope we have a great time here.
Definitely.
And try to get inspirations on the modern architecture for the pieces that are probably coming 4 years from now, right?
Okay. I still have a couple of buildings and museums on my list before I leave.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bernardo.
Se você ficou até aqui, considere se inscrever. Obrigado e até o próximo vídeo.